So we got this PHP script which will help us to retrieve the data from the database, right? So initially we got server name, username, password and DB name. Thereafter you got the connection which we have created as in a new MySQLi connection. After you check for the connection and you create a SQL query which says like select star from user. Now the point is here you are not supposed to send any data from client to the server. Here you are only retrieving the data from the server into the client. So it's gonna be which request? It's gonna be a get request, not a post request, because you are not posting any data to the server, right? So that's one thing. Now when you say select star from user, I got a response which is an array. Moving ahead, you execute the query by saying $con, right, and the query function call. So you get the result. You check that whether the number of rows in your result set is greater than 0 or not, right? So you have data or not. In case you have data, you create one more index to your array known as users. So this can be any key of your choice. Users can be any key of your choice. Then in my loop, I am fetching row by row the data which has been retrieved from the table into this variable row, and I am pushing this row into the users array. So we got response as one array, and within this array you got the other array as users. So this is array of arrays. Now we have the second guy as success and the third guy as message. In case number of rows are not greater than 0, it means there is no data. So I am just sending back success and message, and here users will be missing. So in the end you are encoding it as JSON and you are sending it back to the client. Now let us come back to the client part and see how we have to implement this on the client part. So we have to upload this script on the server, right? You need to upload the script on the server, right? I am not uploading it. So I'm just pasting this PHP script. So in the raw directory I am just pasting this guy retrieve.php. Alright, so guys, this retrieve.php I have pasted into this raw directory. You can pull it from here, from the GitHub. Now in my program I will be directly navigated to my home activity, right? So if you register or if you log in, I am going to be landing into the home activity. So what I am going to do in my home activity, I am going to retrieve the data from the server. That is what I am going to do in my home activity. So in my home activity, retrieve the data from server. That is what I need to do. And I know if I need to do a retrieve operation or any insert operation, I need to use Volley. And for Volley, I need to have two APIs. The first API is my request queue, and the second API is your string request, right? So this is my second API. In my on create, I am going to say request queue assign Volley dot a new request queue, and let us create a function retrieve from server. This can be any name of your choice. As per your will, you can do that part. So I'm calling this function in my on create. So it means that the moment your home activity will start, we will retrieve from server, right? And in order to create your string request, you say string request assign new string request. Now string request will take 4 inputs, right? The first input is the method, second is the URL, then your third will be the listener, response listener, and fourth is the error listener. And here I need not to send the data to the server, right? Because it's a pure retrieve operation. You can see we are not extracting any input from the client. So it's gonna be a get request. So I need not to create a block and override get params. So the way you are doing it in the insert operation, in the retrieve operation, you need not to do that. So let us come back here, and I am going in my util. So in my util, let us have this retrieve endpoint, and this is going to be retrieve dot php, right? So this is my new endpoint. Now coming back, the first thing is request dot method dot. Now you will use a method get, right? And then you say util dot, you got this guy called retrieve endpoint, comma, new listener, and thereafter one more comma, and you say new error listener. So you are done with this string request, and thereafter you need to say request queue dot add the string request. So we are done with this request part, right? So now you are requesting this guy retrieve endpoint. Now what will be retrieved, right? So what is the retrieval part? You will be getting this response now. So this is what I will be retrieving as in my response. So let's create one try catch. E dot print stack trace, and let's keep a toast in case any exception comes. You say some exception plus E. So let's create this toast, and the same toast I am going to make it in this Volley error, right? So I am going to say some Volley error, print this error over here, and also say error dot print stack trace, right? So you are handling the errors now. Over here in try, I am going to say JSON object assign new JSON object, and you mention this response over here, right? So you were getting a response over here, if you can see now. So in case everything is fine, you are getting users, success and message. In case you are not getting anything, so you will be getting success and message. So for my JSON object, the first thing is let us check the success, right? So you say JSON object dot get the integer on success, right? So either this variable value, I mean success value, will be 1 or it will not be 1, right? So either it is 1 or it is 0. So if it is 1, records retrieved successfully, else record has not been retrieved. So what is the message? So you come up with the message as well. JSON object dot get the string on message, right? And at the same time, the way you got this toast, so in my success and in my this over here, let us just print out this guy message, because message will tell whether records have been retrieved or not. Now in my success equal to 1, I will say JSON array assign JSON object dot get the JSON array named as users, because users over here is representing another JSON array. I told in my PHP script itself, you got one array called response, and in the response you got one more array called users, right? So we got this array of arrays, so this guy is a JSON array. Now we need to iterate on this JSON array. I need to iterate on this JSON array. So how I will be iterating? You say for int I assign 0, I less than JSON array dot length, and let us say I plus plus, right? So this is a basic loop. Now I can say JSON object, let us say JOBJ assign JSON array dot get on the basis of, let's say get of JSON object on the basis of I. So I'm retrieving object one by one. Now here one object which I am retrieving from array is basically representing a row in my table. So it is representing a row in my table, and my row will contain 4 attributes. So this already is defined in my user model. So there are these 4 columns available in my table: UID, name, email, and password. So these 4 columns will be retrieved now, right? So what I am going to do, in my home activity, you say int I assign 0, then name, email, and password, right? So I'm just creating these variables over here. Let us say ID. So I'm going to say ID assign jobj dot get the integer as in UID. Then you got name assign jobj dot get the string as in name, email, and password. So guys, these are your column names in the table. So right hand side, if you can see in the get int, the inputs, these all string inputs, right? So string inputs are the column names of your table. So please do not get confused, and I have already said that there shouldn't be any confusion. So that's why in your model, in your bean, in your Pojo, whatever is the name of the attribute, it should be same as your table column names, right? So it should be exactly same, so that there shouldn't be any confusion. So now we got name, phone, and email. Now it means that if there are 10 records in my table, so this loop will be executed 10 number of times. Makes a sense to everyone? And I will be retrieving 10 different records in these 4 different attributes. So what I am going to do, I am going to create an object of user. I will say user is a new user. You put the ID, you put the name, email, and password. So it means that if there are 10 records which are being retrieved, I am going to create 10 different objects. And very gracefully, I will create one array list of type user and name it like user list. And in my on create, or let us say in the retrieval part over here, you can say user list is a new array list, and keep on adding the users into the array list. Now here you got all the objects which are representing rows in the form of your array. So table is mapped as an array list. So array list of type user is now representing the data which is retrieved from the table, right? So guys, can I get an acknowledgement? Sabko clear hai? As of now, it's very important to understand. Now the next part is how I can show the data on a list view. Now that is my next concern, right? I need to come up and create a list view. Let us start from a very basic concept, how we can create a list view. So my home activity, so we got the layout file of the home activity as constraint layout. So let us remove this constraint layout and let us create this guy as a list view. And what I am going to do is I am going to come up with some padding, let's say 16 dp, and let us give an ID, and this ID goes like list view. I think this is something which we have already discussed and done. Good to go? I got this list view over here. So list view is created in my home activity. Let us write list view at the rate inject view r dot id dot list view, and over here after the set content view I'm going to say butter knife dot inject of this. So my views will be initialized. Now list view is created, right? I need to create an adapter. List view will work with an adapter, right? And for my adapter I need to have a list item. So I'm going to create a list item over here. In my resources, in my layout, let us create one new layout resource file, and I'm going to name it like list item. So I'm taking it as a linear layout, so it's as per your design preferences. Whatever you want to take, you can take that. So this layout over here is a list item, and this list item is a linear layout which is having an orientation of vertical, and I'm going to come up with the padding, let's say 16 dp. So in my list view, let us drag and drop some text views. So I'm dragging and dropping two text views. So the first text view is text view name, and the second one is text view email, right? So this is what I'm going to do. Let's say the first one will come up as in 20 dp, and the text color is going to be color primary dark, whereas the second one will come up with some text size of, let us say, 16 dp, and the text color will be color accent. So this looks pretty good, I think, right? So this is what I got as in my list item. So text view and text view, two text views. So the first text view will be the name, and this will be the email, right? So this is what I got as in my list item. So I can show you. So here we are, good to go. It's very basic, not that complicated. And this layout file, you can just say the height is just wrap content, right? So it will look like this, if you can see over here. So it is just representing a list item. Good to go with this. Now how to create an adapter? In order to create an adapter, you go to the Java. So I have already created a package called adapter. In my previous sessions, we have done this part. On the adapter package, do a right click and say a new Java class. So here I am going to name this class as user adapter. So it's a plain Java class over here, if you can see. It's just a plain Java class, user adapter. User adapter extends array adapter and give the type of array adapter as user, right? So here we are. So we created one class which is extending array adapter, and array adapter is a generic type of user. You will be getting this error, so click on the error bulb and say create constructor matching the super, and you choose this second last option. So here you got the first input as context, second input as what is the layout file, and the third input as list. So this list I am just going to change it to array list, right? So take these three inputs over here: context, resource, and objects. So for this objects, I'm just going to name it as in list. So in my constructor, you say this dot context assign context, this dot resource assign resource, and similarly you say list assign objects. Makes sense? If you can recall whatever we did in our previous sessions of Android, how to create an adapter. So user adapter is extending an array adapter, and we are creating these three variables, and whatever the inputs will be passed over here, so it will be initialized over here. So these variables will be initialized with the inputs. In the home activity, once you retrieve the data, right? So I'm going to create a user adapter. So once you retrieve the data and you have this user list created for you, come out of the for loop, and say user adapter assign new user adapter, and you mention the guy this. Now why we are mentioning rather than this, you can just say home activity dot this, reference to the activity. Then second thing which I am going to pass is r dot layout dot list item, the list item which you created, and the last input is your user list. And then you say list view dot set the adapter called user adapter. Now you see that there is data available in my user list. So the data is available in the user list, right? So now this data which is available in the user list along with the reference to the activity and with the list item is passed to the user adapter. The user adapter over here was taking three inputs: context, resource and objects. So in the context we got the reference to the activity. In the resource you got r.layout.list item, and in the objects you got this guy called user list. So these three inputs we are actually giving to these three variables, right? So these three variables we are actually copying these inputs. Good to go. Once we are done with this part in the adapter, now you go and create a function called getView. In my getView function, I'm going to create a view which is null, and then you simply say return the view, right? So I got this view which is null, and then finally you return it. View is null and you just return the view. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say view assign layout inflator dot from the context. So layout inflator dot from context dot inflate resource comma parent comma false. Now this is what we used to do, right? So from the layout inflator we got this reference variable view which is pointing to this resource, and this resource is nothing, it is r.layout.list item. And in my list item I had two text views with the ID text view name and text view email. So in my user adapter I am going to say text view txt name assign text view, and you say view dot find view by id r dot id dot text view name. So in a similar way you got this guy called text view email, and now you say user assign your list dot get on the basis of position. So getView function will be called n number of times, right? So this getView function will be called n number of times, and whenever it will be called, the value of position will change from 0 to n minus 1, where n is the size of your array list. And now we will be retrieving the user object one by one, and you can say txt name dot set the text, user dot get the name, similarly your email. So this way you got your entire structure which you need to design, right? So let us see once again what we have done from the very beginning. We got one PHP script where we got some credentials and we created a database connection with the MySQL API, and we created one query called select start from user. So it's gonna retrieve me all the users, right? So when your result set is having the data, so it's like rows are greater than 0, you create an array of array called users which will have all the rows available along with the success and message as one and retrieved successfully. Else case it's not retrieved. Now this PHP script is available on my server, right, at a URL, and this URL over here is available in this form. So URL is available as in oribuses.com/emc2017/retrieve.php. Now you need to upload your retrieve.php in your corresponding directories. Once this URL is available, once the PHP file is uploaded, deployed or hosted, what we need to do, we need to come up and choose one activity. So for example, I have chosen this home activity. Now in my home activity, the moment onCreate is executed, in the onCreate method, I am creating the Volley request queue and I am saying retrieve from server. Retrieve from server is a user defined function, right? I defined it. In retrieve from server, I created a string request. The method is get, endpoint is mentioned for the retrieve operation. We got a listener and we got an error listener. Now, in case there is a successful response, I am going to extract users from my JSON object and I am going to iterate into my JSON array. One by one, I will be extracting the JSON objects, and from the JSON objects, I am going to create something known as user object, and I am putting my user object into my user list. Now, this user list contains the entire data which was available in your tables, and this user list is passed into the user adapter along with two inputs: what is the reference to the activity and what is the layout file. Layout file we created as a list item only with the two text views, right? Over here, name and email, and in my user adapter file, your reference to the activity, layout and array list is passed over here. In the get view method, you are creating a view which points to the resource. Resource is nothing, it is your r.layout.list item. In that list item, you are finding the two views, text view name and text view email. You retrieve your user object from this list. So get view function will be executed n number of times, where position value will be 0 to n minus 1, and one by one retrieval of my object, I am also displaying this on my text views, and finally you are returning the view. So finally what you will be getting is a list view with all the retrieved records. So this is what you need to do. Guys, are we good to go? Great guys, thank you.